It is the remote, rugged edge of the Highlands that held the darkest, sinister secret for years. The place where cancer survivor Tony Parsons had been crossing Scotland in a 100-mile charity cycle. Here in September 2017, the Navy veteran was captured on CCTV weaving through the rural roads on his final fateful journey.
Having a loved one go missing is terrifying, but having a loved one go missing for 5 years, then later found dead is way more terrifying. Today we're going to be reviewing the tragic case of Tony Parsons. On Friday, 29th of September 2017, a 63-year-old man called Tony Parsons doing a charitable bike ride. Tony Parsons was a grandfather who had survived prostate cancer and was a former Royal Navy submariner. Tony Parsons had already done several fundraising bike rides. He took a train from Tillicountry to Fort Williams to do a 100-mile fundraising bike ride all the way from Fort Williams back to Tillicountry. He had arrived at Fort William at 4:10 p.m. and had planned to ride all through the night. Tony was last seen at the Bridge of Orchie Hotel around 11:30 p.m. about 40 miles into his 100-mile route. After leaving the Bridge of Orchie, he would continue heading south where he would no longer be seen again. This was the last time Tony Parsons was seen. On the 2nd of October 2017, he was reported missing after not coming home on the weekend. Authorities had tried to look for him, however, there was no sign of him and his bike as well. However, a year later, a CCTV footage will be released of Tony Parsons cycling by a petrol station. The police thought that they could use this as a lead for finding him, however, nothing came of it. The authorities do what they could, but Tony Parsons was still not found. Now, because of this unsolved case, a lot of speculation started to go around, especially on the unsolved crimes Reddit threads. From October 2018 to October 2020, people on Reddit were speculating what could have possibly happened to Tony Parsons. Now, the general conclusions from those threads were one of two things. Speculations number one: Tony Parsons was hit by a heavy goods vehicle driver who did not see him while he was cycling on the road, and his body was found in the deep parts of nowhere. Now, for those who don't know, a heavy goods vehicle is a vehicle that has very heavy goods. So those big ass trucks, yeah, that is what it is. Or speculation number two: Tony developed hypothermia and died in the cold because he wasn't fit enough and his body was found on the undergrowth of nowhere. Now, out of the two speculations, which one do you think is true? Do you think Tony got hit by a big ass truck or he died of hypothermia? Also, people were debating the possibility of a hit and run and the possibility of the person disposing Tony's body. Well, after all these speculations, the truth was finally revealed, and what happened to Tony Parsons will finally come to light.
There was not a single trace of him alive ever again, despite relentless nationwide police media appeals and his family begging for help. It was all in vain, because the entire time the answers lay right here in this community. Local twins knew exactly what had happened.
Meet the pair of twins, Robert and Alexander McKellar, two twin brothers in their mid-20s who lived and worked in the Oak Estate, which was the area Tony Parsons was said to cycle around. Their father, Tom McKellar, had been convicted for possession of firearm, which they used to kill a golden eagle in 2009. Aw, poor eagle. Now I know what you're wondering. Delson, what did they have to do with this? Shut your ass up and listen. On September 20 29th, the boys had been out drinking the same day that Tony had gone for his cycling trip. These boys had gone out with a hunting group drinking. Now guys, get ready to be pissed. After drinking, I don't know what happened to their brains, if they even had one, but they decided to drive. Yes, drive. Alexander was on the driving seat while Robert was a passenger. While drunk, Alexander was driving on the bridge of Oki and the entrance of the Oak Estate. However, while driving, something crazy had happened. They had struck someone, and that someone was Tony Parsons. Now, Alex claimed that he had hit Tony because he saw oncoming headlights. He claimed that he was distracted by oncoming headlights, which had caused him to hit Tony Parsons, which, to be honest, I kind of call bullshit, because remember, Alexander was driving drunk with his brother. Now, this is where it gets more crazy and evil. Although they had hit Tony Parsons was still alive. Yeah, he was still alive. However, do you know what these twin dumbasses did? They left him, and they didn't even call any medical assistance. So they left him, and then they dumped the car that they used to strike him somewhere else. Now, the medical examiners had found out that Tony had some fucked up injuries. I mean, he had suffered injuries to the rib, injuries to the spine, and injuries in even the pelvis. Yes, even down there. Fucking horrible, bro. It is also said that he possibly suffered a collapsed lung. Now, do you want to know what's crazier? What's crazy is that 20-30 minutes after they had hit him, he had a chance of survival if he had gotten medical help sooner. So meaning, if these two idiots had called the medical assistance 20-30 minutes or immediately after they had hit Tony had a chance of surviving. Now, do you know what these twins did with Tony Parsons' body? So after leaving him on the side of the road, the next day or another day after, the twin brothers had come to dispose the bike and the body. First, they had threw away the bike away at a waterfall. Then they threw Tony's body away at a pit bog. So basically, they threw Tony where they threw, well, dead bodies of animals. Then they buried the body with an excavator. Oh my goodness, this shit is crazy. Then they proceeded to leave and say nothing about it for 3 years. Yes, no joke, 3 years. Meaning that all that time that Tony was missing, he had been dead for 3 years. Bro, these twins are fucking demons. And to think that they were that close for getting away with it and not getting caught is fucking crazy. But then there's a saying, what you do in the dark will come to light. Now you may be wondering, Delson, how exactly did they get caught? Well, it's actually funny because they didn't actually get caught. See, what Alexander did, he did a 6ix9ine on himself. He snitched on himself. Let me explain. In 2020, Alexander met a girl on Tinder called Caroline, and she just got out of an abusive relationship. Now, after a few weeks of dating, they got engaged and got married, which, by the way, is a huge red flag. A few weeks? Not in a few months, a few weeks. Yeah, this guy is crazy. Now, there were some things that Caroline was noticing about Alex. One of the things she noticed is that whenever a police car was driving next to him, she would notice that Alex would get extremely tensed and nervous. So she would be asking Alex questions like, oh, what is going on? Are you okay? And is there something you're not telling me? She then told Alex that if we're going to be together, we need to be a team and we need to, open up with each other. So then Alex started panicking. He was gasping. He was breathing. Bro was basically shitting his pants. And then it seemed like he couldn't take what he did anymore. What he did was literally eating him up from the inside. So then Alex confessed. He confessed to doing what he did to Tony Parsons. Now, when he told her this, Caroline was shocked. She could not believe what she was hearing. Her husband was a killer. Yes, girl, your husband is a killer. And you're also a dumbass. Why would you marry someone within a few weeks of meeting them? That is so dumb. I don't care how much in love you are. That is such a red flag. I'm sorry. Now, not only had Alex confessed to Caroline of what he did, literally took her to the grave where where he buried Tony. Now, when Caroline got there, she did something very smart. What she did was, where Tony was buried, she put a can of Red Bull as a tracker to kind of indicate where Tony had been buried.
I just threw this Red Bull can over my right shoulder. Went back to pick it up. I crunched it into the ground because there's no other way you would ever know where that man was.
Damn, Caroline, I guess you're not so dumb after all. She then became an FBI and started gathering as much information as possible about what Alex did to Tony Parsons. She had spent over a month doing all she could to gather as much information. After the feds got as much information as they got, on January 2021, the body of Tony Parsons was discovered. And then, in December of 2021, they were arrested. They were arrested and charged with the death of Tony Parsons. Initially, the twin bozos pled not guilty as they were awaiting trial in August of 2023. But shortly after, Alexander pled guilty to culpable homicide. Then the brothers pled guilty to hiding the body and preventing the court of justice. And then the sentences came. However, the sentences were kind of questionable. Alexander was sentenced to 12 years while his twin brother Robert was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think that sentence is a little too small, but hey, I guess that's my opinion.
Hey guys, so as I was editing this, I found out more information about Caroline. So after Caroline snitched on her boyfriend Alex, she's afraid that when Alex comes out of prison that he's going to do something to her, which is pretty scary.
You fear that he could harm you?
100%. And
What, fear of your life?
I think if he was drunk and intoxicated, yes.
I also found out that the police were trying to force Caroline to say more information, but the way they were forcing her was like in a messed up way, which was kind of illegal. So yeah.
They never saw me as a human. They never saw me as a professional. And they terrorized me. They intimidated me.
Following the conviction, Tony's family made a statement. Throughout the 6 years since he went missing and then the subsequent criminal investigation, they have been left with so many unanswered questions, and it has finally heartbreaking for each member of the family being unable to get these answers. You can imagine not knowing what has happened to someone, and then the devastating news that we were provided has taken its toll on all of us as a family. At last, justice has been done, and we would like to thank not only the court officials and officers from police Scotland's major investigation team. You know, it's crazy how she thanked all the police officers and stuff, but what about Caroline? If not for Caroline, they would have never found out about this case in the first place. I mean, they would have never found out where Tony Parsons was this entire time. As a family, we would like to request privacy at this time so we can finally grieve and come to terms with the outcome of the trial and life without Tony. Damn, that's actually sad. My condolences go out to the family who have lost a dad and a granddad and a husband. The family of Tony Parsons came to a 6-figure settlement in court, and this is the tragic case of Tony Parsons. This is literally my second true crime video, and this is one of the craziest cases I've ever seen. You know, I've decided that after every true crime video, I'm going to give out a moral. So here's a moral to y'all. The moral is, do not drink drive while you are drunk. All of this would have literally been avoided if Alexander had used his brain, if he had one, and not drunk while driving. And because of his actions, it has taken the life of an innocent 63-year-old man. Rest in peace to Tony Parsons. Anyways guys, that case was crazy, but let me know what you thought about this case. And also, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, make sure you like, comment, or subscribe, or else I'm gonna run your ass over. Until next time, RK4L.